Welcome to a debrief about Pitkin County's new short-term rental regulations. I'm Marci Suazo, Communications Manager for Pitkin County. The regulations apply to properties in unincorporated Pitkin County. The City of Aspen and Town of Snowmass Village are reviewing their own set of rules. The Pitkin County Commissioners began researching regulating short-term rentals in 2021 after the proliferation of short-term rentals was identified as a growth problem. The short-term rental market had been virtually unregulated. With new regulations, the Commissioners hope to reduce stress on transportation infrastructure, housing, recreation, water resources, and other quality of life variables. Applications are now open on pitkincounty.com for people to apply for short-term rental licenses. Look for the short-term rentals button on our homepage. The regulations, though, don't go into effect until September 20th. Joining me to explain some of the details of the program are short-term rental program manager Jeanette Muzio, Pitkin County Manager John Peacock, and Alex Sanchez, Community Development Analyst for Pitkin Counties. Welcome to you all.
Thank you, Marci.
So I'm just going to ask you all various questions about short-term rentals. And to kick it off, John, I've got the first question for you. Can you talk about the background a little bit? Why did the Commissioners pinpoint short-term rentals, or STRs as we often call them, as a growth problem?
Yeah, thanks, Marci. And so I think the board recognizes that short-term rentals have a lot of benefits to our community. They provide a diversity of short-term options for visitors who may not otherwise have options in our community. On the flip side of that, however, are impacts, and those impacts tend to happen in neighborhoods that weren't originally planned for that kind of turnover in population, or maybe the number of people that may be in a home in an unregulated environment. And so as STRs have become more popular and utilized to a much higher degree in our community, we were hearing, and the board was hearing, a lot more concerns about those impacts on neighborhoods, impacts on residents, and requests for us to balance the benefits to the community of short-term rentals with the impacts. And so that's really what the board is trying to do with regulations. It's not to get rid of short-term rentals, but to be sure that we're taking the steps to mitigate the negative impacts to our community while still enjoying the benefit.
And this is a living document, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this first iteration could be changed in the future. The program could look different.
Absolutely. One of the things about the short-term rental market is without a licensing program, we don't have a good handle on exactly how many there are, where there are, what impacts we're actually seeing to neighborhoods. And so as we understand better our data and what's happening in our community, we'll revisit that, and we'll, from time to time, with the board, staff will recommend changes, and the board will consider changes to better achieve that balance and the goals that the board has set out with STRs. And that's what it means for it to be a living document.
Okay. Well, very good. And to sort of dive a little bit deeper into the process, because there are some questions that have come up since the application went live on July 15th. Alex, who's joining us on Zoom, can you tell us a little bit about the application process? How can people apply for a short-term rental license, and what does the application process entail?
Yeah, thank you, Marci. Happy to explain kind of the application process. So for anybody who's looking to apply for a license, we recommend going to our Pitkin County website, either to the short-term rental page or community development page. Within there, we've got a software called Sages Gov that we recommend people click on. And when you first approach this website, you'll need to create an account, either an individual for individual owners or a company account for multiple employees. Once this account is approved, then you can begin the application process. Once approved, you'll get to our home page. This page also has all of our various building permits, planning permits, and there's a section called short-term rental license. You'll click on that, and that process entails 4 steps. First step being the location page. Where is the short-term rental license going to apply, the residence, and parcel information, so that way we know the location. Our second step is going to be dealing with application and information. This is where we understand who's the owner of the property, who's the primary contact in case any emergencies arise, and also some more specific questions to understand and be able to report back on the commissioners regarding STR's impacts and activities. Step 3 is going to be an upload file step. That'll give you the opportunity to provide some necessary documents that we need in order to review the license. And step 4 is going to be a confirm and submit. You'll be able to review everything and then get that license application submitted. So in those 4 steps, you'll know that you're completed. While your license is in review or in process, Jeanette will be working with each individual very closely, as she has since the launch, to make sure that if there's any missing documents, information, or changes that need to be made, as well as fees that have to be paid as we look to issue your license in the future. There's also a noticing component of that, and noticing adjacent property owners of the intent for an STR license, and that's any property owner that has an adjoining boundary, and there are ways to get that information out if you are unsure as well.
And Alex, you mentioned the 15 days. So after somebody applies for a license, there is a period of 15 days, correct, before the license, during that period it gets reviewed, but 15 days later it may get processed and the individual may get the license. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. There is a 14-day minimum waiting period before you apply when that license can be issued. So we recommend everybody get their application in as early as possible. While this has to be in place by September 20th, we are asking folks to get in the queue as soon as you can to make sure that that's not delayed or impacts come that date. The 14-day period is to notify adjoining property owners, and that's a comment period for them to provide comment back to the licensing authority per the regulations set forth. So for those thinking of waiting or wanting to see how things play out, again, we recommend getting that in at least by the first week of September to allow for enough time for the application processing, the noticing period, and then getting that license by September 20th.
And the licensing procedure, it also entails a fee. Can you tell us a little bit about this tiered fee structure that's based on the number of nights people intend to rent their unit?
Correct. So we heard some feedback from the public that there's a wide range of those that use short-term rentals. Some only use it for a couple of days to cover expenses. Others use it for a couple of months to really be their main financial driver. And so with that feedback, we adopted a tiered fee structure. And so that structure has 3 different tiers based on the number of nights you're renting. The lowest tier, or more lowest price tier, is those that are renting less than 20 nights. The next tier moves from those that are renting 60 nights to 21 nights. And then the highest tier being anybody renting from 60 nights to 120 nights. Each of those tiers is charged a different percentage of the assessed home market value. So for an example, if we take $1 million home and they only want to rent for less than 20 nights, their tier or license fee would be $200 in that scenario. And again, that $1 million example, if they wanted to rent the maximum amount, say 60 to 120 nights, that licensing fee would be $400. So this tiered approach gives people flexibility in how they're currently operating their STR. For those that only want to cover, say, their property tax for a couple of weeks while they're out on vacation, they still have that option, and it's not a burden or a barrier for them to enter into the license process. And those that are paying a larger amount of STR activities or nights are going to have that higher tier. And all of this is to cover the year or the budget to run this program, software, employees, and everything like that.
That was my next question that I was going to ask John a little bit about. I know There were questions from the public about, where is this money that comes through these fees going to go within the county? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the funds that are generated through the fee will be used to fund the program. And so that is the staff and systems that we have to put in place for the licensing and the tracking, and also the enforcement of the rules around the program. And so we'll continue to evaluate that over time and make adjustments either up or down in those percentages as we know better what fees are generated. But the fees will be used solely to support the program.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Jeanette, I've got a question for you. Jeanette's joining us on Zoom as well. The program kicks off September 20th, but people can apply for a license today, like we mentioned. So if somebody applies for a license today, how long is that license good for?
Good question. Thanks, Marci. All licenses are good for 1 calendar year from the time their application is approved. Applications, we're receiving them now, but the ordinance does not go into effect until September 20th. And that's all the applications we get will be from 1 calendar year. So anything beyond September 20th we receive will be on a rolling basis. So if someone applies October 1st of 2022, their license is good until October 1st of 2023. And at that point, there will be a renewal process for each year.
Great.
And those fees are just annual. It's a one-time fee to apply for the program. There's any additional fees involved. It's just an annual fee, and then that's how you will renew your application and your license.
Can you talk a little bit, Jeanette, about that 5-year rental history piece of the program? I know you fielded some questions about it. What's expected of people applying for a license when it comes to that 5-year history piece?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. There has been some confusion about that. And just to clarify, the board decided to go with this 5-year rental history rather than capping the number of short-term rental license. The city's doing a different program, but the board decided that they would just to honor the properties and the individuals who have already been renting, have been short-term renting for many years and decades, and it's been in the family. They don't want to upset that. So they decided to have a 5-year rental history from May 11th of 2017 through May 11th of 2022. As long as they can prove that the property has been rented, it could just be one night, and we have different ways, several different documents that you can provide for us. And as long as we can verify that, then you can go ahead and have a license continued. And again, as you mentioned earlier, this is a living document. They wanted to start off this first year and see how that, see how many more, and then be doing impact studies after that. I'm sure after speaking with other surrounding counties, these programs do evolve and change. So, if you can't get in this year because you started renting your home in June of 2022, just be patient, and probably next year you can be included in that. So I hope that has some clarification for those listening and have questions about that 5-year term.
Absolutely, yeah. And my understanding, John, is that 5-year, showing that you've rented during that 5-year period in the past is sort of meant to limit the number of licenses, correct?
Yeah, it's certainly meant to keep the number of licenses from growing more, right? It sets a limit of new licenses about where we are today, maybe a few less because of that. Maybe there's difficulty proving that rental history, but it was certainly a way to put a meter on how quickly these could grow, and to put a cap that didn't distinguish based on years of residency or whether you're a resident or non-resident, is really that you were providing the service in the community.
Okay. And Alex, I know you mentioned this earlier in our conversation. You talked a little bit about how folks who are applying for licenses, as part of that application process, there's a requirement to notify your neighbors that you are intending to use your property as a short-term rental. Can you talk a little bit more about that piece of notifying neighbors?
Yeah. So during the licensing review process, there are various documents that our systems or software creates. And those documents, one is a notice to the neighbors, joining property neighbors, and you send out via mail, letting them know that you intend to use the property for short-term rental activity. There's another document that's an affidavit attesting that that's been sent out. That gets returned to us. And then the third is an explanation of the process as well, exactly what we're outlining here. So while people are going through review, they'll get those documents, they'll follow that process, and that's when that 14-day review comment period begins. And just allowing for any neighbors, anybody around, to provide comments, either positive or negative, regarding that short-term rental activity and how it could impact them. And then that's all reviewed by Jeanette while she's looking at the licensing application and taken into consideration. So for anybody who wants to provide comment, there's still an opportunity as these different license applications go through review.
Great, thank you. And Jeanette, I want to ask you as well that about our website. What's available on the website in terms of resources for people who want to pursue a license?
Mm-hmm. We will have a video tutorial for people who are applying, and it's a step-by-step process on how to apply and how the Sage's website works. You can go to our either the community development website to get more information, or just Pitkin County website, and there'll be links to short-term rentals, one of the first selections there.
All right.
Yeah, and I might also just add on resources. Our community development office is at 530 East Main Street in Aspen. We have a computer there available for anybody who'd like to walk in and have somebody talk through the application process. We also do accommodate virtual meetings if you'd like to set up a virtual meeting, either via Zoom or Google, and we can digitally walk through it as well. So for anybody who's having any difficulty, definitely recommend them coming on in or reaching out to us, and we're happy to schedule some time to work through that as well.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, guys. Those were my questions. Is there anything else about this program that you all would, like the public to know about? Any final thoughts from any of you?
We will look forward to getting input from the public on an ongoing basis as we roll this program out, in the spirit of having that living document and adjusting our regulations to meet our goals. So look forward as we go into public settings with our board and such, that the public participate and share their concerns about the impacts or their stories about the benefits, so that we continue to drive towards the right balance in these regulations and how we're implementing them.
Okay, great. Jeanette, Alex, final thoughts?
I would just agree with John that, I've been talking to a lot of individuals who are applying, and really welcoming that feedback. And again, stressing that this is a living document. We're gonna take it slow, and we want to work together as a community to make this a success for everyone involved, and those who want to come and enjoy this beautiful valley that we all call home.
Great.
Yeah, and I think just along with that, the software is also living software, and if there's any recommendations as you apply, we welcome those as well to try and improve that application process, along with the regulations that go with it.
All right. Well, thanks, John, for joining me, and Jeanette and Alex, thanks for joining on Zoom. Really appreciate your insight, and I hope this is helpful for the public.
Me too. Thank you, Marci.
And for those of you who do have questions about the short-term rental program, Jeanette is the person to contact. And Jeanette, would you mind giving your contact information?
Sure. My email is jeanette.muzio, my first and last name, at pitkincounty.com. Or you can reach me directly on my work phone, which is 970-379-9918.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you
Hey,
for
Marci,
having us.
thanks for pulling this together and making it happen. And John, thanks for joining.
Yeah.